Good afternoon and welcome in. It is 2 o'clock. I'm Zach Merchant. You are here right alongside of us for the next 2 hours in the 11Alive Plus Streaming Center, and we are tracking a lot of news. Right now, we are standing by for a Department of Justice press conference featuring the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dillon, alongside the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, the Middle District of Georgia, and the Southern District of Georgia. You're seeing that empty podium right now on your screen. Details are limited as to what the topic of this press conference, the topic of perhaps this announcement is going to be. We're going to find out together, and as soon as that press conference begins, we're going to take it to you live. As we stand by, though, we want to go to meteorologist Danielle Moss, who joins us now. Danielle, on a beautiful day.
Yes, today is an absolutely gorgeous day, Zach. If I could just bottle up this day and keep it around, I know a lot of people have allergies, so I feel bad saying that.
You know what? You can't get everything, right? My dad once said, if you can get to 80%, you're doing pretty good, 80% happy.
And today's an 80-degree day, and I think that is an 80% day. So
we like that. Those are thumbs up. And I get allergies, so I can say this.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's appreciated. Your sympathy is appreciated.
Well, today is absolutely gorgeous. Yes, we have some cloud cover building in, but it has been so beautiful all day long. In fact, as you take a look at our satellite and radar, we have some clouds building in from the south, and that's going to increase our rain chances over the next few hours. But take a look into DeKalb County. What a beautiful, beautiful shot of our city.
Oh,
I love it. I know. I just did a cut in and I was thinking, this almost looks fake, but it's not.
It really does. It looks like you'd go on a vacation and you'd send a postcard that
exactly.
looks like that.
Welcome to Atlanta. This is absolutely gorgeous. Temperatures right now already 79 degrees and it feels like 80 degrees out there. We have an 11-mile-an-hour wind, and that is going to play a big part in Mr. Pollen. We'll talk about him in a second, though. Yeah. No. Here's a look at your current temperature. Across metro Atlanta. It is definitely an above average day. In fact, Chamblee's already at 82 degrees, 81 in Lithonia, 81 in Covington as well. So it's very warm out there. In fact, it's 10 degrees warmer than what we were this time yesterday here in metro Atlanta. And as we go throughout the next few days, our temperatures are actually going to climb. Yes, we'll have some increase in cloud cover, and yes, our rain chances will be increasing as well, but we're going to end up being really nice and mild. Let's talk about our March pollen count. This is our official pollen calendar for the month of March. Yes, we've had several extremely high days, and the last 2 days we've had just high days, and we have to take a win when we can.
Well, a qualified win.
Exactly.
I'm no expert, Danielle. I'm expecting that green means good there.
Yes, green means good.
Not a lot of green on that calendar.
One good day for us here in March.
So that's the 20% of the 80% kind of day we're talking about there.
Exactly.
You don't get everything you want.
It was absolutely horrible for anyone who has any kind of pollen allergies, and even if you don't, your car is covered in it. There's no escaping it. We haven't had a good amount of rain. That's going to be changing the next 7 days, but until we get until this weekend, our pollen count is going to be increasing. I would not be surprised if tomorrow's pollen count is just in the high range, but as we look into your Wednesday pollen count, your Thursday pollen count, that's going to be reflective of today and going forward, and that's going to be an increase. Here's a look into our precipitation coverage over the next 24 hours. We have isolated chances for rain. We're not looking at anything severe. In fact, as we put our forecast track into motion by 5 p.m., yes, some of those increased clouds will be bringing very light, spotty sprinkles throughout the area. Not looking at any heavy downpours or any severe weather or anything that would really impact your evening commute. As you head into your Wednesday, though, Wednesday afternoon, early afternoon, that's when we can expect some of those showers to be a little bit better in size as well as more scattered in nature. Scattered showers mean that we can have multiple isolated showers all over the place. Isolated showers is just when there's just one single, maybe 2 or 3 pop-up showers, but it looks like Wednesday is going to be more of a scattered shower day for us. We'll be drying out just a little bit before we start our day on Thursday, but our temperatures are definitely going to be well above average, even with that cloud and rain cover as we go throughout your Wednesday. And it doesn't look like we're going to be seeing much of a severe weather chance, which is great news, but we have to continue to keep our eye on it. We have to continue to keep our eye on the forecast as always, but when we talk about these temperatures being on the warmer side into the 80s, and we talk about isolated shower chances, even for your Thursday, there is a chance to see maybe a strong storm develop.
And Danielle, I hate to cut you off, but it looks like, are seeing the beginning of this Department of Justice press conference you're seeing now on your screen. Let's take you there now. You're looking at the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, Theodore Hertzberg. Attorney General, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights is also there, Harmeet Dillon. Let's listen in right now.
U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Georgia, and Meg Heap, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Georgia. We're here today to announce a $3 million settlement with the state of Georgia. To give more details about that, I'm going to turn it over right now to Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon.
Thank you for that introduction, and thank you all for being here today to hear about this important settlement from the Department of Justice. I'm proud to be joined by all three of our colleagues here at the DOJ who head up the different divisions of the Department of Justice's U.S. Attorney's offices. Mr. Hertzberg, who you just heard from, Will Keyes from the Middle District, and Margaret Heap from the Southern District, in announcing this groundbreaking settlement to safeguard the rights of service members and their spouses who serve here in Georgia as they continue their essential work for our great nation. This significant statewide Georgia settlement ensures that service members and their spouses here in Georgia can benefit from a key protection of the SCRA, the Service Members Civil Relief Act, one of the many federal civil rights statutes that we are charged with enforcing at the Department of Justice. Without having to go through lengthy, costly, and unlawful procedures, thanks to this settlement, service members and their spouses will be able to enjoy licensure reciprocity here in Georgia as guaranteed by this important federal law. From now on, service members and military spouses moving to Georgia on military orders will be able to use a streamlined licensing process to continue working in their chosen professional field. The settlement provides for a $3 million settlement fund to compensate service members and their spouses who have been subjected to unlawful licensing requirements in Georgia since January 2023. And there are 40 plus different licensing boards for different professions here in Georgia, so as you can imagine, it's very widespread. This resolution is essential not only to the military community here in Georgia, but across our country. Members of the military and their families make great sacrifices to ensure our national security every day, and they're often required to relocate frequently in response to military orders. Frequent moves create a barrier to entry for the spouses of our service members, particularly for these spouses who face an unemployment rate of 20%, way higher than the national average. And that is why Congress passed the SCRA. Enabling service member spouses to continue with their professional careers, even as they cross state borders in service of our nation, supports military families, and in turn supports our national defense. The Department of Justice has been and will continue to be under this president deeply committed to enforcing the SCRA on behalf of all service members. Since 2011, the DOJ has obtained nearly $500 million in monetary relief for over 149,000 service members and almost $2 million in civil penalties prior to the settlement. As part of this work, we're investigating professional licensing boards throughout the country to ensure that state practices align with the SCRA. Today's settlement sends a clear and unmistakable message to state licensing boards outside Georgia that the department will protect service members' rights to the fullest extent provided by federal law. To the boards following along as to what's happening in this settlement, let me be very clear. When a service member or spouse is already fully licensed or certified by another licensing authority in the United States, and they move to a state such as Georgia on military orders, all states' licensing boards must limit their requirements to only what is permitted under the SCRA. If the licensing board demands a process or procedure that exceeds SCRA's requirements, they are violating federal law, and we will take action at the Department of Justice. States are required to recognize out-of-state licenses as provided under SCRA. Now, our colleagues in Georgia, especially Teddy Hertzberg and his team, have been indispensable. I want to thank them particularly for taking the lead and working with us at the Civil Rights Division. This has been in place this has been a conversation we've been happening for many months, and many different things had to fall into place under state law for this to happen. So this is an important settlement that took a lot of steps to accomplish. And I want to appreciate all three of them for their efforts to investigate and resolve this matter. Thank you for this leadership as we continue to protect the rights of service members here in Georgia and across the United States, both in this way as well as under the federal statutes that we administer. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Harmeet. I endorse everything that AAG Dillon has said. I just want to briefly highlight why our settlement is so important for military families in Georgia. Service to one's country is truly noble, but rarely easy. It often involves tremendous personal sacrifice. Orders directing soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines to report to a new duty station disrupt whole families. Many headaches follow: packing, changing schools, leaving an employer, closing up shop, finding new jobs. Everything changes, all in selfless service to the security of our nation. Today, we honor and recognize these sacrifices, and we say to our fighting men and women that if you must deploy to Georgia, you will be welcome here, and your transition will be free from unlawful burdens. Thanks to this settlement, when military families are sent to Georgia, they can now be confident that their professional licenses will be recognized as required by federal law, and they can seamlessly get to work immediately to support their families. Our settlement follows an investigation led by Assistant U.S. Attorneys Marissa Felica and Eileen Bell Hughes, who were supported by the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division and the U.S. Attorney's offices for the Middle and Southern Districts of Georgia. The investigation began in 2024, when the Justice Department received a complaint alleging that Georgia's professional licensing boards were not recognizing the out-of-state licenses of service members and military spouses as required by the SCRA. The investigation revealed that many of Georgia's licensing boards were out of compliance, and we learned the stories of many impacted military spouses, including a physical therapist who, after her husband was sent here on military orders, had to drive to a neighboring state every day so that she could work, because a Georgia board did not recognize her active and valid out-of-state license. We also learned of a pregnant veterinarian who, despite having a job offer waiting for her here, when her family had to relocate to Georgia on military orders, could not start work or collect a salary because Georgia's boards refused to recognize her out-of-state license. We believe that there may be as many as 5,000 individuals affected by the Georgia board's past practice. Over 40 licensing boards are covered by this settlement, as you heard, and service members and military spouses who believe that they may be impacted should contact my office directly for assistance. In closing, I'll simply observe that today is a great day for Georgia, for the rule of law, and for our military families. Our settlement demonstrates the productive, collaborative relationships, not just between everyone standing here, but also between the four of us and our state partners at the Secretary of State's office, the State AG's office, and the Governor's office. Those relationships allowed us to fix this problem for the benefit of thousands of Georgians without the acrimony, expense, or delay of litigation. I appreciate the Secretary, the AG, and the Governor for their support of our troops and for their consistent cooperation with our important effort to protect the civil rights of service members and their families.
Good afternoon. Meg Heap for the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Georgia. First, I want to say, as a daughter of two parents who were military, having siblings who are in the military, and nephews, I am very excited that the settlement was reached. In addition, for the Southern District, we're proud home of Fort Stewart, Hunter Army Airfield, Fort Gordon, and the submarine base at Kings Bay. We have more than 40,000 service members who are stationed or are in training at those installations, and many of them are with their spouses and family members, bringing an economic impact to our district of nearly $9 billion annually. They are a vital part of our community, and we're very proud to support them. This settlement will provide monetary relief to military spouses whose professional employment opportunities have been limited because of the state of Georgia's unnecessary delays and red tape. More importantly, this settlement clears a path now and in the future for the military spouses to pursue continued employment when they move their service members to our community. Military spouses provide critical support to our military families, including much-needed stability for our service members. We are very grateful to the work of the staff in the Civil Division of the United States United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Georgia, to the staffers in the Northern and the Middle Districts for their tireless work on reaching the settlement. All of our communities will be stronger because of their efforts. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Will Keys, the United States Attorney for the Middle District of Georgia. It's an honor to be here with Ms. Dillon, heading up our civil rights for the Department of Justice, along with my partners at the U.S. Attorney's offices here in Georgia. And we are here to announce just a great thing for the state, a great thing for our military, for our service members. And, it's ensuring that these members and their spouses can receive the full protection under the SCRA. As a veteran of the Army myself and as a reservist currently, this, particular project was impactful. I think it's important for me personally, but more important for the state. The Middle District of Georgia is home to a very large military population. We have Robins Air Force Base in the middle of our district, Moody Air Force Base to the south, Fort Benning down outside of Columbus, and then the Albany Marine Corps Logistics Base. So we have a very large population regularly moving in and out of our district. And that's why this work being done with our partners, our federal partners and our state partners, is particularly important. So appreciative of that collaboration and making sure that these individuals with professional license can seamlessly move in, work, and support our population in the Middle District of Georgia. And really, this isn't just of benefit to the service members, it's not just of benefit to their spouses, but it's to the people receiving these services and the economy in Georgia that they will be able to come in and provide for our people in the Middle District and across the state. So again, I just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to highlight this great example of DOJ leadership along with our state partners working together to do what is best for our sailors, Marines, Army, and military members across the district who are working to preserve our freedom. Thank you.
We have time for a few questions if there are any.
How prevalent is this around, is Georgia alone in this, or are other states that have the same problem?
Yeah, no, it's actually a pretty widespread problem, and that's why I alluded to the fact that we want other states to take a look at what Georgia did here and Georgia's leadership and all the really elected officials at the top working with us to solve this problem. This took many months, started with conversations with myself and Teddy, and we got some political leaders in the state involved, and they cooperated with us, and we did not have to sue. And many times, as the head of the Civil Rights Division, I have to sue states to get them to comply with our federal laws, and that didn't happen here. So we do hope that the way Georgia resolved this matter will be a model for other jurisdictions.
Is it $3 million back pay? Is that going to be back pay for the spouses who have been unable to work?
Yes, I mean, it's a pool of compensation that they can claim against. So people will now, get to come forward now that we've reached this settlement and make claims and demonstrate the extent to which they are economically out of pocket for potential failures of Georgia law. But I will say that since we've been doing this for some time now, I think Georgia has really been working board by board to reform this. So by the time we got to this table here, we aren't starting the process, we're really kind of at the end of that reform process.
Ms. Dillon.
Yes.
Tyler Finger with Fox 5. In December, you had sent a letter to states telling them, hey, all of this. I mean, have states been reforming since you've been trying to get them to fix these problems that clearly are widespread?
Well, I think it's a mixed bag, but we do very much, when we became aware of this issue being so prevalent, we sent out this kind of dear colleague letter. We really do rely on people making complaints for us to know the extent to which there's an impact. For example, with 40 boards in Georgia, there could be some that are following the law. Just to give Georgia as an example, some that are following the law and some that aren't. But, licensing boards range from interior design in some jurisdictions to law, medicine, et cetera. And so some states don't have a regime where certain of these are licensed or not. But what we've done is put all the states on notice that they have to comply with this federal law, and we will take action. Let's let others to ask questions before we.
So is this something that's still happening today? Maybe you guys said the 5,000 people that have been impacted. There was a House bill that was passed
Well, the complaint was received in 2024, so I believe there were indeed boards, and the lawyers here who did the investigations can speak more to the details if necessary, but the reason why we had to do the settlement through the DOJ is despite even well-meaning laws and practices.
So you are looking right now at this ongoing press conference, approaching about the 20th minute here, a press conference led by Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the Department of Justice. That's Harmeet Dillon. She's still speaking right now, this press conference announcing a $3 million settlement with the state of Georgia over licensing regulations and alleged and now admitted to violations of some licensing privileges awarded to and granted to members of, or spouses, I should say, of U.S. military service members under the SCRA, a federal law that protects professional licenses and allows them to move from state to state when a service member or their spouse moves state to state for deployment or for part of their service. That press conference continues. We're going to continue to monitor that. Right now, we are going to go to a quick break. We will be right back after this. The major Jewish holiday of Passover is just about to begin. It starts tomorrow evening. We're joined right now live by Rabbi Rick Jacobs, who is the president of Union for Reform Judaism. Rabbi Jacobs, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you.
It is, and you don't need me to tell you this, but it is a particularly complicated moment around the country and around the world. This is a moment when major faith traditions like Judaism are at the center of a lot of attention right now. What, amidst all this context, does it mean for you and other members of the Jewish faith to have Passover coming up right now?
Well, Zach, it actually feels very fitting because the whole holiday is about celebrating freedom. It also is about confronting very difficult circumstances. Think of the ancient Egyptian slavery and the courage of our ancestors to not only go free, but to make their way as poor desert wanderers. And we think of migrants today. You can't tell the story of antiquity without thinking about today's migrants. And for the Jewish people, tasting even the dry matzah, the unleavened bread that we eat, reminds us of what it's like to be a poor person with no home. And it gives us empathy to think about those today who live in that same circumstance. I also would point out, as you alluded to, it's a time of increased anti-Semitism. We've had dramatic attacks on synagogues here in North America. It's a fearful time for many people just to be Jewish in the world. So it also is a time of trying to find ways for us also to be filled with hope. Passover celebrates springtime and the better tomorrows that are ahead. That's exactly a welcome message for us this year.
You know, and I'm sure you are well aware of this. Just yesterday, the FBI's special agent in charge of their Detroit field office announced that that attack on a Michigan synagogue and school a few weeks ago was an act of terrorism inspired by Hezbollah. When you saw that news, how did that hit you?
Well, first of all, I was there last week. That's one of our Reformed congregations. It's our largest Reformed congregation. And to be very honest, we averted a mass murder by literally a centimeter. So for us, we knew that the attacker was bent on not just harm, but really egregious harm. And so yesterday, the news about this being not just connected to family members in Lebanon, but that he himself actually was somebody who was following the leadership of Hezbollah, an international terrorist organization linked to Iran. That confirmed, frankly, what we suspected. And it just points out the danger of this moment in contemporary Jewish life. I would also point out, as you show the footage of Temple Israel in West Bloomfield, Michigan, is that the churches in the community were unbelievable. The entire faith community rallied to the synagogue. It was a beautiful expression of interfaith solidarity. It was a frightening moment. Over 100 kids and about 50 adults were in the early childhood center, and the attacker came very close to igniting the entire building, which would have killed 150 people. So the remarkable staff and the security cooperation with local law enforcement averted this disaster, but it also reminds us that we're not out of the woods. There's danger pretty much all around us. But even with that danger, we're going to find joy on this holiday. The wonderful people of Temple Israel in Michigan, they're also going to find joy, even in this very, very challenging moment. That's also the spirit of Hanukkah, the spirit of Passover.
One follow-up question for you, Rabbi. As you mentioned, that attacker was thwarted, you said, by a very narrow margin when he drove that car into Temple Israel. There was security already on site, already on staff that opened fire on that attacker. I would imagine to some people who heard that news, it may have come as a surprise to hear that a house of worship had security pre-placed like that. Why was that decision made to have them there? And a decision that obviously turned out to be a fortuitous one.
Right, but what you need to know is in this moment, there's not a synagogue right now in North America that doesn't have security. That was not just because of that particular day that they thought there was a threat. The security personnel on that congregation's campus, they're there all the time. And they're not just responding to maybe something is going to come out of the ordinary. And even our smallest congregations, I was in Jackson, Mississippi, one of our smaller congregations, they experienced an arson attack earlier this winter. They too have to be very vigilant and have to use whatever means they can to secure the congregation. And sometimes it feels a little bit like TSA in that you go through some serious security to get into one of our buildings. Frankly, that's the reality of where we are. You're not safe getting on an airplane today without security. And you know what? It's a sad commentary. You're not actually feeling safe to go into your house of worship without that serious security guarding you and your family. But that's where we are. That's the reality of Jewish life, and we accept it. We're also working very closely with the federal government to bring more resources to help congregations defend themselves, to use the security protocols that have proved very, very effective. So that's part of this story. It's a story that's unfolding. We pray that in the not too distant future, we'll be able to, move freely in and out of our congregations without that kind of intense security. but that day is not today.
Rabbi, we're short on time, but I want to make sure I ask you this question before we go. In this very complicated moment we all find ourselves in, what would be your message to both Jewish people and non-Jewish people as we approach this holiday weekend amidst everything that's going on? What do you want people to take away?
I want people to take away that we're in this together. Whether you're Jewish or you're observing Good Friday this Friday and Easter on Sunday, we are a country based on our mutual responsibility for one another. And let's stand together against the hate. Hate is potentially consuming our country and our world. Let's stand against it. Let's, in the face of hate, let's build love, respect, and solidarity. Those are the things that ultimately all of us teach our children, all of us hope for our society, and together we can build that future.
Rabbi Rick Jacobs, President of the Union for Reform Judaism, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we will be right back after this. Well, you're looking live once again at the tarmac of the world's busiest airport, Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson, on not quite a blue sky day, but it may be feeling like one inside of the airport, and particularly in the terminals and the TSA checkpoints, a spot that has seen its share of turmoil over the last few days. Some very long lines, a lot of challenging conditions, particularly for TSA workers who had been working without pay since this partial government shutdown began all the way back in mid-February. Some pay is now rolling out to those TSA officers via an executive order signed by President Trump a few days ago. And those long lines that we saw, they're starting to dwindle. You're looking at this live TSA security wait time tracker online. For a good chunk of the last few days, this webpage was just frozen on a banner that said it's going to take 4 hours to get through the TSA checkpoints in Atlanta. Now very different. You're seeing 0 to 15-minute wait times basically across the airport, a huge change from those long lines. Those TSA officers, a little bit of change for them as well, and actually more than a little bit of change. Tyler Perry, you know him, the media mogul, Atlanta star. He's got a lot of titles. One of them is philanthropist, and he had been working via his team to try to deliver gift cards, and pretty sizable ones, to TSA officers working at Hartsfield-Jackson. And then it became this real roller coaster of back and forth. Can the TSA officers keep the gift cards? Yes, they can. No, they can't. Yes, they can. No, they can't. It was a long process. Our Cheryl Preheim has been tracking it every step of the way. And Cheryl, it really was. You used the word roller coaster the other day.
Yeah.
And we're on the outside reporting this, but for these TSA officers who have been working without pay, a lot of them have bills that are piling up. The question of whether they can get this money and access it or not was a big one, and now there's a happy ending.
Yeah, a happy ending to days of confusion and back and forth over these TSA gift cards from Tyler Perry. I just had a chance to confirm with Tyler Perry's spokesperson just within the hour, and they tell me that they have gotten documentation from the senior legal counsel of DHS and TSA that this is resolved, that all is well, and the TSA workers can keep that money. And when we talk about that money, we're talking about $250,000 in a donation in the form of $1,000 gift cards for TSA employees. Now, I want to make an important point here. I saw the documentation. Tyler Perry's team had the green light to make this donation before they went back to the airport. They had talked through the legal and HR teams, and so they went there with the green light already, knowing that that was okay.
From the jump, from the beginning.
From the jump. So I think that's an important clarification that Tyler Perry's team wants to make, that they went through the proper channels and the protocol before they made this donation. And I also want to point out that this would have all done privately and under the radar if our sources at TSA hadn't reached out, because they were so thankful and so grateful, and they thought this was so kind and so wonderful. They wanted the world to know. But Tyler Perry never had intended to make this a public gift. And so the back and forth was tough to see.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, because these are the sources that you're talking to, but I would imagine some of the spotlight that's come on this story is also due to the fact that it was not right off the bat something that these TSA officers could cleanly and clearly accept. Had there not been this back and forth about, well, is it in regulations or not for a TSA officer to accept this gift card, a higher likelihood that this would have all been done privately.
Right, for sure. So it started with an initial surprise visit to the airport. I believe that was on Wednesday when Tyler Perry did physically go to the airport. He wanted to say thank you to TSA workers who were working without pay despite those lines out the back door of the airport, under the canopy.
Which literally
was
wrapping
crazy
through
to
the
see.
maze all the way out the door where you drop your bags off, where you drop a passenger off.
Yeah, people standing under the lit up canopy for hours at a time. So he went to say thank you. He took selfies, and he had gone with cash, hoping that he could hand that out. Then he understands that's not how the rules go. So then they start going through the proper channels. The next day, after it's been green lit, his team takes $250,000 worth of gift cards, presents it to management to distribute. And then it was, about 36 hours later, I start getting calls saying we're being told to turn the gift cards back in. So it was kind of layer by layer by layer, which I think was why I thought, well, this is kind of a roller coaster for people who've been through a lot already.
And these folks that you're in contact with, I mean, it has been, and this is almost, putting an underscore under something that doesn't need to be underscored, a really trying time for a chunk of the federal workforce that has been going to work without pay up until this executive order just a few days ago. It had been, well over a month.
Yeah.
And it was the second shutdown that they've been dealing with. We had another shutdown late last year. For the TSA officers, I'm sure it was joy when you first got this news. You're going to get some help from Tyler Perry and a big gift card. And then I'd imagine a lot of frustration and whiplash when it seemed for a moment like they weren't going to be allowed to use this.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, even when I was getting calls from sources saying we have to give the gift cards back, they were still saying, but still, this was a huge morale boost. But still, it meant so much that he made this gesture to us. It still means so much. They were calling him to me over the phone like a modern day Robin Hood. They said he's like the hero of the team. And that's even when they thought they had to give it back, because it wasn't just about the money. I mean, $1,000 gift card is a big deal. But when you haven't been paid for almost 6 weeks, it is a drop in the bucket. How do you pay your rent, your gas, your child care, groceries, all those things, plus interest, plus late fees? I mean, the accumulation was just crushing to people. And in fact, some of them are still having trouble coming out from this because they're still owed some overtime, and it just piles up. So I think you make a really important point. The money was a generous gift. The gesture maybe went the longest way. And I mean, they say that was the biggest morale boost they had seen during the course of this shutdown by a mile.
It's recognition.
Yeah.
For going, I mean, talking about going the extra mile. Understandably, when we're reporting on this, when we're covering this, you see those pictures of the long lines. I think a lot of people snap to the mindset of being a traveler in those lines, and experience many of us have experienced when we're flying, usually not lines to that degree, but your mind kind of goes there by default. But TSA officers were dealing with those conditions too. It was really tough. And it looks like those lines are starting to resolve themselves right now.
A really important point, because none of this diminishes what the travelers have gone through. And I think the TSA workers are the first to acknowledge that. I think they would be driving to work every day in a certain kind of dread, knowing that it's going to be really rough, and understanding that people are exhausted and frustrated and missing flights, and you can't get out of line to use the restroom, and you can't get water. And it is a horrible, terrible situation for all involved. And just imagine driving to work knowing every day you're going to face that. Oh, and then you're not going to be paid. So I just think it's been a challenge for all involved. And so this was kind of a burst of sunshine, a burst of goodness that had a lot of confusion around it. So I'm very happy to be able to share a happy ending to this, because it really is about the gesture. It's about some kindness. Atlanta's own philanthropist who loves to do things in the quiet, so does a lot more than any of us know about. But it's nice to be able to not only share that this was a gesture that was made, but that is now being able to be received.
And a reminder too, when we talk about these policy issues, goings on with the federal government, with Congress, people are still at the heart of the receiving end of the impact, whether you work at TSA, whether you're in the lines traveling, whether you're Tyler Perry. These are people stories and real kind of human events playing out on a one by one scale, even when you see those pictures of so many people in the airport.
Yeah, for sure.
Cheryl, we appreciate it.
I love to bring you a happy ending.
I
wish I could do that every time.
We try to do that all the time here in the streaming studio, Cheryl. And not only is it a happy ending that we'd love to get, but you've been tracking the story that has been complicated for days here. And your perspective and reporting helped these folks out and helped us understand it better. So thank you.
All right. Thanks. Happy to do it.
All right. We're going to turn now to this. You see it on your screen right now. This is a live look at Florida, the Kennedy Space Center. We're about 27 hours away from the planned Artemis 2 launch coming up, and it'll be happening tomorrow. 4 astronauts headed to outer space for a mission that will not take them directly to the moon this time, but will, if all goes according to plan, take those astronauts on a 10-day trip in an orbit around the moon that is supposed to be a precursor to a mission set for just 2 years from now that will take man back to the moon. Our Tom Costello has more from Florida.
Good day. So mission managers right now say they are working no issues. They are go for a launch, and the window opens at 6:24 p.m. on Wednesday. And it's going to be a 10-day mission, as you know, with astronauts looping around the moon, not landing on the moon, but looping around the moon as they test out the brand new Artemis rocket and, of course, the Orion spaceship. The astronauts themselves, all 4 of them, have been in quarantine with their families over at the astronaut beach cottages over on the Space Coast. They are going to now start to prepare for this liftoff, and they are going to be tanking the rocket tomorrow morning at about 7:40 a.m. Eastern Time. If all goes as planned, and so far the weather is looking good, They will lift off and then spend the first 24 hours in an Earth orbit before they begin what they call the translunar injection, heading for that rendezvous with the moon. We're going to cover it all live, of course, on NBC News. Back to you.
Here on 11Alive Plus as well, this historic planned mission set to take off tomorrow. You can join us right here at 4:30 p.m. as we will be watching all of it unfold. This next step en route to a potential next manned mission to the moon coming up in a few years. The first step, the step right in front of us right now, is that Artemis 2 launch. You see the countdown, just 27 and a half hours away. We'll be bringing it all to you live tomorrow starting at 4:30 in the afternoon. We'll see you then. Right now, we're going to take a quick break, and we will see you back here in 2 minutes. One man is dead. 2 other people are injured after a shooting that happened at Atlantic Station. It happened actually right across from the street from the Regal movie theater over there at Atlantic Station. Our Seth Haynock has more.
Yeah, that's right. This shooting happening inside the 17th Street loft. So that's just above Bath & Body Works here at Atlantic Station. We know 3 people were shot, 2 in the hospital, and again, 1 person not surviving. That person has been identified as 23-year-old Donnie Harbor, who died after being transported to the hospital in critical condition. The 2 others also taken to the hospital, described as alert, conscious, and breathing. We're going to take a look back now at that scene. It was just before 6 p.m. Monday evening. The sun was still up at this apartment complex that police say is not managed by Atlantic Station, but on the property. One man telling 11Alive that it's unfortunate that violence keeps plaguing this popular shopping center. He says it's normally a family-friendly environment and that he actually rushed over after hearing the news to check on a friend who works nearby.
We're just trying to make sure that, it wasn't a maniac outside. Out here, all the police was already taping stuff off, so it's kind of, been settled down and whatnot.
Now, as far as a suspect, Atlanta police has not released any of that information. We also know that this shooting comes just a few months after another high-profile shooting happened at Atlantic Station, as well as multiple teen fights that have broken out over the last few months, all raising safety concerns in the area. I'm Safina Chainok, 11Alive News.
We want to turn now to Iran and the ongoing military conflict taking place there and across the broader region of the Middle East. President Donald Trump, he has threatened to destroy Iran's water and energy infrastructure if a deal to end the war and reopen that critical shipping lane, the Strait of Hormuz, is not reached soon. These negotiations and the reporting and conversation around them continue. NBC's Matt Bradley is in Tel Aviv with the latest.
Well, it's been another night in Iran of constant bombardments by the Israelis and the Americans, targeting sites throughout the country and in Tehran, shutting down power in wide swaths of the Islamic Republic. Now, meanwhile, this impasse over the Strait of Hormuz is continuing, and we are once again hearing contradictory statements from the President of the United States, saying that he is negotiating with the Iranians and also at the same time threatening to target energy installations and fresh water installations, basically civilian utilities. This could be considered a war crime if he follows through with it. But now, this situation, these negotiations are at an impasse. The Iranians have denied that there are any negotiations at all. We heard from the spokesperson for the Iranian Foreign Ministry essentially saying that there are definitely no direct negotiations and that any negotiations that are taking place are simply messages being passed through intermediaries. So, while we've heard the president say that this all could be wrapped up very soon, the Israelis are still trying to achieve their military goals. And we heard from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying that they've achieved more than 50% of what they set out to target in Iran. So there is some anxiety that here in Israel, that if the United States wraps up this fighting too quickly, as we heard from President Trump, that he might do that Israel won't be able to achieve the last 50% of all of its goals. That's why we're continuing to see both America and Israel striking Iran day and night. Matt Bradley, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
So a big part of this conversation remains the Strait of Hormuz, as Matt pointed out, and as I'm sure you know because you've been following this story, it's a critical shipping lane in the global oil market. On a typical day, about a fifth of the world's oil supply flows through that critical choke point, the Strait of Hormuz, that at its narrowest point is only about 20 miles across. With Iran effectively blockading that choke point, it is now causing ripples across the global oil market, and we're seeing gas prices take a big hit. They're going up. Although we should point out here, AAA says that Georgia's suspension of the gas tax, Governor Brian Kemp and the state legislature moving to suspend the state gas tax, it continues to provide some relief for drivers. The average price for a gallon of regular gasoline, it's $3.63. It's down from last week, but still substantially up from before the conflict. You're looking live now at Gas Buddy. It is an online source that tracks gas prices, fuel prices at gas stations, and we've narrowed this search down to right here in Atlanta. And Jordan Mickle, our producer, is behind the screen here. Jordan, we're looking right now at the cheapest spots in Atlanta, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So right now, what we see, it's $3.11. You can get it at Sam's Club in McDonough. You can get it in Morrow for $3.11. Over in Costco in Sharpsburg, it's $3.12. And $3.12, and also in Stockbridge. I want to note that a big part that is that we're looking at is the overall prices. According to AAA, it's just shy of a little over $4, but here in Georgia, it's actually lower than the national average. It's closer to like $3.62 is kind of what people are seeing at the pump right now.
And we should point out as well, when we're looking at this Gas Buddy, where we were a moment ago, it's not surprising to see these Price Club outlets have the cheapest gas, right? Sam's Club, Costco, those are places you go. You've got to pay a fee. You've got to get a membership. And then they often, more and more frequently now, they have gas stations attached to it. And those gas prices are typically lower. But AAA pointing out, and this $3.63 figure, that's for Georgia, correct, Jordan?
Yeah, that's correct.
So AAA saying about $3.63 is the average price in Georgia. You're seeing those lower prices at the price clubs, but if you go to a typical gas station in Georgia, AAA says about $3.63 a gallon is going to be the price on average you'll be looking at. And AAA notes that's almost a full dollar higher than prices last year, 87 cents in particular, to be specific. AAA says we are 87 cents more expensive for a gallon of gasoline in Georgia than we were 1 year ago. We, of course, are going to continue to track those developments for you and keep a very close eye on all that is unfolding both in the Middle East and in Washington, D.C., where the point person, President Donald Trump, leading these negotiations is. And every development, we're going to bring it to you. Right now, we're going to go to a quick break. We will be right back after this. A controversial push in Washington, D.C. is taking up a lot of the oxygen at the U.S. Capitol right now. And even though Congress is on recess right now, the conversation around the proposed SAVE Act continues. If enacted, it would require proof of U.S. citizenship, like a passport or a birth certificate, to sign up and make sure you are eligible to vote. Now, supporters say it protects election integrity, making sure that only those who should be voting are actually the ones doing the voting. Critics, though, they argue that if passed, the SAVE Act could block eligible voters from casting a ballot. Our Dan Kennedy spoke with Max Flugrath with Fair Fight earlier today about what the SAVE Act could mean for people here in Georgia.
So if the SAVE Act becomes law, what could this mean for voters in Georgia specifically?
Well, first, I just want to say the SAVE Act doesn't actually solve any problems. Non-citizens voting is such a rare problem. It's less than 0.025%. We saw that Secretary of State Raffensperger did an audit and only found 20 non-citizens on the voter rolls out of more than 8 million. But as to how it would impact Georgia voters and how they register, so you couldn't actually register online or by mail anymore. You would have to show up in person. And, that means Georgians in rural communities across our state will have to drive further distances to present those documents, like you mentioned, in person.
Who would be most impacted by these changes?
I would say rural voters, absolutely. Young voters. I don't think any of the ID forms accepted under the SAVE Act are student ID cards. So rural voters, young voters, folks who are working multiple jobs, and have less time maybe to make that commute in person. So, it would have a widespread effect on the entire electorate, but those folks would certainly see an outsized impact.
Supporters say this is about making sure only U.S. citizens vote. I know you pointed out that the fraud is very rare, and the numbers back that up. But they say this is just common sense. I mean, would you agree that the core argument that only U.S. citizens should vote in federal elections is valid?
Yeah, and that's what's happening. Again, it's so exceedingly rare that you're more likely to get struck by lightning than you are to see a non-citizen vote. And so you got to look at also what the people who are pushing this bill are saying. They're saying that without this bill, Republicans won't win another election, and that with the bill, Republicans will win every election for the next 50 years. Any laws that people are saying are going to sort of create a partisan advantage in our elections are something that you should take a closer look at, you should examine, and you should ask questions and think about the real motives behind them.
Would you offer any kind of alternative, or do you think the status quo is working just fine?
Well, I think, again, our elections have been audited here in Georgia, and we haven't found any widespread problems. So if anything, I think we need to increase the number of voting locations across the state so people have more opportunities to go vote closer to their homes, closer to where they work, so they have less lines, and additionally to sort of expand early voting. We know that when we do both of these things, participation increases. So if we really want to make elections better, those are two simple things we can do.
Max, Americans have been polled on this issue. Pew Research found 83% of Americans favor voter ID requirements. Gallup found 84% support voter ID, including 67% of Democrats on board. How do you read those numbers?
Well, I think voter ID is a common sense idea, but when you get down to the details, you have to make sure it's done fairly. And one example that I like to point to is in 2013, North Carolina passed a voter ID law. Eventually, it got blocked by a court. And when they went through the trial, what they found was that legislators in North Carolina, Republican legislators, had taken a look at data showing which types of IDs that the black citizens of their state were least likely to have. Then they made those IDs the requirement. When it was struck down, the judge said in his ruling, I believe the quote was, it targeted black voters with a near surgical precision. So again, on its face, I think voter ID makes sense, but it's when you get down to the details where you can have problems.
So you think it kind of comes down to educating voters about what it actually means?
It's that. It's also like specifically what types of IDs are allowed under the bill. In a lot of places, student IDs are not allowed, right? And that's a big problem because a lot of students, maybe their ID is from a different county, maybe it's from a different state potentially, and they're using their student ID primarily when they're at school.
Max, help us understand where this goes next. We know it passed the House. It's in the Senate now. You need 60 votes to get there, which means you're going to have some Democrats crossing over, and that's assuming every Republican votes for it. Where do you see this thing going right now?
I don't see much of a pathway for it here. You saw the U.S. Senate did not pass it, and they went on their Easter recess. They don't appear to have the votes. The president continues to demand it and is trying to sort of tie other funding, important funding sources to that. But again, it doesn't seem to have any legs, so the path forward is unclear.
All right. Max Pflugrath with Fair Fight. Big election year here in Georgia. We look forward to talking to you some more as the year continues. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.
So that, of course, is the perspective of a critic of the SAVE Act. Others have a different perspective on the proposed legislation, including some conservative U.S. senators, including Majority Leader John Thune. This is what he and a group of his Republican colleagues had to say about 10 days ago in a press conference focused on the SAVE Act. Let's listen in.
It's a piece of common sense legislation that we think is overwhelmingly supported by the American people, and we intend to keep pushing forward and ensure that the American people know whether their senators are for or against ensuring that only American citizens vote in American elections.
10 million illegal immigrants flooded into this country while Joe Biden was president and the Democrats were in charge of the Senate. And now Democrats want to make it easier for them to have an influence in our elections in the United States. I believe only citizens of this country ought to vote in American elections, and I believe you need to show and prove you are who you say you are with a photo ID in order to vote. It's common sense. You have to show a photo ID to board a plane, to buy a beer. Why not to vote?
This is not complicated. This is simple and straightforward. It's not even controversial, except in Washington, D.C. Across the country, if you were to ask anyone, should you show an ID to be able to vote, they would say, well, yeah, that shouldn't be a problem on that. Should you ask the simple question, should only American citizens vote? And they would say, of course that should be so. But for some reason, that's controversial among Democrats in Washington, D.C.
The truth is that over 80% of Hispanics agree with an ID to vote. 75% plus African Americans agree with an ID to vote. The one thing this is not is about separating people. This is about making it easier to vote and harder to cheat.
So you've now heard perspective from both proponents and critics of the proposed SAVE Act. Conversation and debate continues, and we're going to track it all. But right now, we are going to switch gears to a beautiful, look at that, beautiful live picture, Blue Ridge, the flag waving in the wind. I want to call it a blue sky day. It's not quite, but it's close. Meteorologist Danielle Moss here with much more on that. I didn't know that live picture was coming up. That was picturesque.
You were pleasantly surprised.
We like pleasant surprises here. That was nice. So shout out to our producers there. Good job, guys.
Yes, that was a good choice. It is absolutely gorgeous outside, Zach. It's one of those days where it's nice, it's sunny, it's warm, and then we have this increased cloud cover. So just make sure that you are prepared in case you run into a stray shower. I know a lot of people want to get outside in this warmth. We have been definitely experiencing a very cool start to spring, but our temperature is going to be warming up very nicely. Here's another beautiful shot right out of our tower camera in DeKalb County. It is absolutely gorgeous with beautiful clouds. That's exactly what you can expect over the next few hours. It is currently 80 degrees here in Metro Atlanta, and there's an 8-mile-an-hour wind. Our temperatures across Metro Atlanta are a little bit above average. In fact, there are several places near 81 already. Our 24-hour temperature change, that really tells the weather story for us today. It is slightly warmer by 10 to 15 degrees, depending on where you are, than what we were this time yesterday. Over the next 12 hours, we will climb near 82 degrees, and some of us would have even a feels like temperature associated with it, maybe feeling like 82 to 83, depending on where you are. Cloud cover will be decreasing overnight, and that will be nice. However, we are talking about these warmer temperatures. We're talking about the winds increasing. That all is going to be playing a part in your pollen count. Tomorrow, I am anticipating that pollen count to be a little bit higher. So just make sure that you are prepared for it. Remember that pollen count, the number that is released is based off of the previous 24 hours. So whatever number we get tomorrow is actually based off of today's number. Here's a look at our precipitation coverage over the next 24 hours. We have a chance to see some isolated showers really in the next 3 hours and heading into our late evening hour. Here's a look at your forecast track. You can see some of those isolated showers. No severe weather is expected. We have that cloud cover coming in from the south, and that is increasing our rain chances. You're going to rinse and repeat and anticipate it to be exactly the same for your Wednesday. We're not tracking any severe weather. Wednesday afternoon, it does look like we could be seeing more scattered showers in nature compared to the isolated showers that we're seeing today, but then we'll be drying out overnight as we prepare for your Thursday. Here's a look at our highs for tomorrow. Even with that rain, even the cloud cover that will be sneaking in on us, we're still going to get to around 83 degrees here in Metro Atlanta. It's going to be a beautiful above average day. And the best part is, as of right now, we're not tracking any severe weather, even as we take a look into your Thursday. Could we hear a few rumbles of thunder? Sure. Could we have a few heavy downpours? Absolutely. But severe weather is really not in that conversation for us. And even as you take a look into your forecast track for your Thursday, yes, there's more scattered showers, but once again, they look to all be behaving. I think this is very interesting. Here's a look at your Easter weekend forecast. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, our temperatures are going to be above average. We should be near 70 degrees for this time of the year, but we're going to be into the low 80s, upper 70s. And yes, there's rain involved in this weekend. And so So if you have any plans, any Easter egg hunts or any just gatherings with your family, you want to make sure that you are prepared for that. We are tracking a few showers on your Friday, and then some lighter rain, spotty showers for your Saturday. And then we have a pretty large front that's going to be pushing through on Sunday. Timing for Sunday is still off. What's happening is this is a cold front that's coming in from the west. It actually will stall out right over the Mid-South, over the Midwest. It's going to cause a lot of heavy rain, maybe even 3 inches of rain there. As it pushes our way, it'll lose some of that strength, and we'll get around 1/2 inch to 1 inch, just depending on where you are. The timing, because it does stall, is still up in the air. So that's something that we're going to continue to watch and want to make sure that we get that accurate for you. But you can see that rain over the next 7 days, that pink area over your screen to the west, that is where that front will stall out. And then as it pushes closer into Georgia, we start to get a less amount of rain that we are anticipating. Now, once again, we need this rain. The drought monitor shows exactly how dry we are, so any bit of rain will definitely help. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast. 82 degrees for today. We'll be near 84 to 85 by Thursday. Then we'll be tracking some spotty showers as we head into the weekend. And Easter Sunday looks like you might want to have your rain gear with you in your car as you make those plans. And cooler temperatures arrive on Monday.
It's maybe a day, Easter Sunday, to bring the umbrella when you're walking into church in the morning.
Exactly.
An umbrella never hurts in Georgia in the spring.
Never.
Danielle, let me ask you one question, not Easter related, not weekend related, but weather related, of course. We are all keeping a close eye on Florida, the Kennedy Space Center, and this Artemis 2 launch.
Yes.
You see it up on your screen right now. It's supposed to happen tomorrow in just about 27 hours. For people who are not familiar, I know you know this, but for people who are not so familiar, explain to us just how important the forecast and the weather is for the timing of these launches.
It is very, very important, Zach. And when we talk about anything that's flying in the sky, whether that is a drone or a plane, whatever it is, the weather plays a huge part in that. But when you're talking about something that is involving a launch of this magnitude, they have their own meteorologists that work at NASA and their own meteorologists that are working with them so that they can get a spot on forecast, because wind speeds, wind direction, all of these things will play a huge part in how things play out tomorrow. And when you talk about Florida, if you've ever been to Florida, you already know those pop-up showers will get you every single time. So you have to make sure that all of that, plays a part. They have been testing and things, but nothing is like the real deal the first day. So the weather plays a large part in that. Just like when you're flying here, we have a lot of meteorologists that work with our mainline carriers. So Delta, American, Southwest United, they all have their own meteorology department. And so every day, those meteorologists, they get a flight plan and they know, okay, you can't fly, through this storm. You have to go around. Same deal that's going to be happening with Artemis launch.
And we know folks are going to be paying very close attention, watching it very closely. Right now, all signs seem to point towards
a go.
Launch. Point towards a go. There it is. Excited for that and hoping for clear skies and a safe journey for those 4 astronauts headed to outer space and headed to an orbit around the moon. Very excited. Danielle Moss, always excited to have you in here as well. Danielle, thank you very much. We're going to go to a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Artificial intelligence is coming our way. In a lot of ways, it's already here. It's only getting more robust and more adept at doing more things, and that means it impacts people who do things for a living. All of us who have jobs, everyone's paying close attention to the impact of AI on the economy, on the workplace. We want to bring in right now Michael Morris. He is the global head of platform and talent at Randstad Digital. It's a recruiting firm. Michael, thanks for joining us. And let's start here. What has been, in your experience, the impact of AI on the job market?
Yeah, thanks, Zach. I'm happy to be here. So we have a global view where we operate in over 39 countries across disciplines that include professional, operational, digital, and enterprise. And what we're seeing is definitely a two-sided marketplace. So anything to do with AI is certainly skyrocketing, is one way to say it. We see that up to a 3 times growth rate of jobs related to AI. So think about your skilled trades, which will be things like in the HVAC, electrical, welding, construction areas, specifically for these data centers, but also in the digital roles that follow that, there's also a huge growth in anything that's connected to the AI boom.
Michael, one of the things that we hear a lot from both proponents of the AI industry's boom and opponents of it, the proponents will say, hey, this is great. We're building all these data centers, and that means you get these knock-on effects of all the jobs needed to create those data centers, blue-collar jobs, trade jobs. Opponents will argue that that is true, but those jobs are only for a relatively temporary period. Once the data centers are built, those tradespeople are no longer needed at anywhere near the size and scope to maintain the project versus how many were needed to build that data center. Do you see that shaking out in the data and the work that you do?
Personally, I do not. I think that we've shown as a society that when demand spikes, it continues to stay there for quite some time. So I wouldn't expect that our demand for AI is going to reduce. So these jobs are going to continue going for quite some time. I mean, I would say for years to come, we're going to be consuming as much as we can, as fast as we can.
What would you say to more white-collar workers, office workers who probably spend a lot of time at their desk working on a computer, maybe working in spreadsheets, the kind of things that AI is already awfully adept at doing, and maybe those folks are a little worried about losing their jobs down the line?
Yeah, Zach, I think it's a great question. And there's certainly going to be a number of jobs that are displaced. There's no doubt about that. There'll be jobs and specifically tasks behind those jobs that are going to be displaced at a pretty fast rate. But to counter that, there's going to be a lot of demand for these new multiplier skills, we like to call them, things that are going to be AI enabled and help us to do more, help us to get more accomplished. Our view is that in the short term and certainly in the long term, the growth of those new skills will outpace that displacement. So ultimately, we think this is going to be positive for both the professional and the skilled trades.
What would be your message to high school students, college students? How can they best position themselves to succeed in this new and it feels like almost by the day changing job market?
Yeah, I mean, change is here to stay. It's going to continue changing rapidly. I mean, my advice is certainly you got to weigh your options and pursue what you're passionate about. A lot of people tend to think that, hey, I've got to go a 4-year degree path or I've got to go the skilled trades path. I don't think it's one or the other. I think you're going to see a lot of people that go through 4-year degrees enter the skilled trades and vice versa. There's a lot of opportunities for learning these days beyond the traditional paths. So I think it's, follow what you're passionate about. The one thing that I will say is that you have to embrace technology. You have to embrace AI as a tool to accelerate your career. It's not a skill. It's not a role. It's a foundational piece of technology that will help you just like any other tool does.
I think you said it well here. Change is the constant. So get ready for it, like it or not. We are in an era of change. Michael Morris, Global Head of Platform and Talent at Randstad Digital. Michael, thank you for your time and your perspective. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Zach.
All right, we are going to turn now to one thing that AI certainly cannot outsource yet, and that is the United States men's national team getting ready for for the World Cup coming up in just a couple months now. Our Reggie Chapman joining us in the 11Alive Plus Streaming Center. Reggie, you got a busy day going on.
Yeah.
We always appreciate you making the time for us here. And the men's national team getting ready for a big summer on the biggest stage.
Yeah, and it's kind of been off to an unfortunate start. The United States men's national team, 2 different friendlies here in Atlanta. The first one over the weekend did not go according to plan, took on Belgium, and they got blown out by a final of 5-1 in a situation where just the goals kept coming in the second half for Belgium. These friendlies are an opportunity for this United States men's national side to figure out who is going to make the roster and who is going to be available. And it's also kind of cool because it's kind of a show run for the stadium as well as the city as well. I mean, right now downtown right there in Olympic Centennial Park, there's an awesome setup where people can go and hang out and enjoy the match before they head over to the stadium. But overall, an exciting time, a huge summer of soccer. But when you lose 5-1 in the first friendly that you have as you're heading towards the World Cup, it kind of puts a damper on things. So here's hoping they have a better performance tonight against Portugal at MBS.
So I mean, let's just say they got clattered by Belgium.
Yeah, it was bad.
5-1 is not a good showing. Portugal tonight, are there hopes that they can turn it around?
I think that maybe prayers. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Portugal's good.
There are going to be a lot of U.S. men's national fans who hear that and they go, oh, geez. That's...
Well, I mean, the thing is like, there's nothing that you saw in the first match against Belgium that leads you to believe that that it can work, but also it's a very small sample size. So when I say prayers, it's not like we prayerfully maybe they can win the match. It's mostly just like we just have to wait and see because we haven't seen what this roster looks like in its full capacity in quite a long time. The last time that they had a camp back in November, their top 2 players, Wes McKennie as well as Christian Pulisic, both did not play. So this first match over the weekend was our first chance to see them kind of look almost at full strength. You've got a couple of situations with injuries and guys you're waiting to kind of come back, but you didn't love what you saw. So a chance tonight against Portugal to kind of right that wrong. And unfortunate for the fans that maybe bought tickets earlier for this match. Cristiano Ronaldo, the global superstar who still hasn't played in America since like 2014, he has a hamstring injury, so he will not play tonight for Portugal. And while you may think maybe that gives the United States a better chance to win, Cristiano Ronaldo is like 41, so he's a good player, but he's not maybe their best player anymore. So this side is still going to be good, and so you're hoping to see maybe some changes. Maybe they play better defensively. And maybe you get an appearance from Miles Robinson, the former United star that is back in the United States uniform.
Cristiano Ronaldo, still a global superstar, but you're right, not the Ronaldo of 10 years ago, perhaps.
Yeah.
But still a force to maybe be glad he's not on the pitch against you. Reggie, this is a team, the United States men's national team, that I think can accurately be said to have gone through recalibration after recalibration after recalibration. I mean, I remember runs in the 2010 World Cup and the 2014 World Cup with a lot of people would say a much more journeyman crew on those teams. They had some real international stars, guys like Clint Dempsey and Landon Donovan and Tim Howard, but then the rest of the squad, a lot of MLS players who made, looking back, reasonably successful runs through the tournament as we have fast forwarded now to where we are. Why does this team keep, it seems, having to revamp itself? And when is the promised land going to come?
The worst part about it is that they were hoping that the promised land would be around this time for this World Cup. I mean, there's no better opportunity.
We don't know it won't be. We've got a couple months left.
But you know, at the end of the day, I don't think we're waiting on some of these other countries have these young superstars that are coming up through the ranks, and I think there was a hope and a prayer that through the soccer system here in America that maybe somebody would emerge as that next global superstar. I mean, we talk about Spain, and the last time when they run through the World Cup, it was kind of a coming out party for Lamine Yamal, who at the time was like 15 or 16 years old, and he was one of the better strikers in the entire tournament. And so you were hoping that maybe something like that would pop up for the United States. We haven't seen that. So you're hoping that guys like Christian Pulisic, who is still young, only 27 years old, and Wes McKennie and everybody else in this roster can kind of take that next step this upcoming year. Like you say, Zach, we're not sure yet. We don't know. This is not the final look at the roster. Not all the pieces are in place. But you hope to see a better performance just to feel good about going into the tournament, especially playing here in Atlanta in what was an awesome environment inside of Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
This is the home tournament too. I mean, we're a host nation. This is happening. It's coming to America. The biggest sporting event on the planet. It's always a huge spotlight whenever our team goes to the World Cup, which they didn't get to do not that many cycles ago.
Yes.
We missed qualifying in 2018. So we've gone through some trials and tribulations here. A lot of coaching changes as well. What does the team need to do to get it right? What are the keys to success?
I think just the key has to be figuring out the rotations defensively. I think that we saw Tim Weah, who is an older player, kind of the captain on the squad. The question is if he's still up and has the ability to compete at a level like this against a top 10 team in the world. You got questions at goalkeeper where you're trying to figure out who's going to be running the show between the sticks back there in goal. And you hope to see maybe more productivity from guys like Christian Pulisic, who is your global superstar and the best player in your team. He's one of those guys that when he signs up for the United States national team, he's one of those guys that plays overseas now. Same thing with Wes McKennie, where you're like, this is different than where it used to be in the past, where it used to be, like you said, a lot of MLS guys.
And that's not a knock on
and
the
it's
MLS
not a knock
either,
on
but
MLS.
there is, look,
it's
you watch
levels.
an MLS game, you watch a Premier League game, it's a different pace of play.
It's a different level, and the guys are at a different pace. They have better control, and they're just overall better players. And it's just kind of a deeper league, and that's not any fault of the MLS by itself. It is a younger league than these other leagues, and through the course of the years, it has grown exponentially and gotten a lot better. And there's a lot more talent, and you're seeing guys from overseas start to come over here. And as the rules have changed, the game has got better in the United States. So. But to answer your question overall, I think that this is just another opportunity tonight to just figure out what this team is, who they have. And we saw a nice start when they scored that first goal. They played Freebird as soon as it hit the back of the net, and people are there going crazy before everything kind of went sideways. But the opportunity to play tonight against a Portugal team that they're coming off of a draw as well when they faced off against Mexico over the weekend. So both these sides looking to prove something tonight. So although it's a friendly, it's still going to mean a whole lot.
And part of it, too, we're short on time, but part of it, too, is being able to keep your head for 90 minutes, to get through that full match, not get too high, not get too low. As we saw, score, you're up, you're excited, and then the troubles began.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a process, and I think that we'll wait and see what exactly looks like. I do want to show you guys some sound after the match on Saturday.
Yes.
We got to talk to Matt Turner, who is the goalkeeper for the United States, and I had the opportunity to ask him a question. I just wanted to know, as the United States' new home will be here in Metro Atlanta as they're building the facility, just the disappointment of not having a good showing on this stage they're playing here in Atlanta, a place that they seem to like when they're playing here. Here's Matt Turner after the game on Saturday.
It's just the fact that this is a good Belgium team. They have a lot of experience, and to be honest, this game had a lot of similarities to our game against the Netherlands in the World Cup, where it just kind of came down to the boxes. We did a lot of really great things in the game, but in the end, in that Netherlands game and similar to tonight, they defended their box better than we did, and they were more clinical than we were.
The question is, will Matt Turner actually be starting between the sticks for the United States tonight? So that's what I'm saying. We've got a lot of question marks, but that's what these friendlies are for. It's kind of like where you're watching a team in the preseason. If things aren't going well, you start to panic when there's a very small sample size. We only have one game as a sample size. So that's why I think a match like tonight here in Atlanta against Portugal, against another top-level team, will be a good opportunity to at least see what this team is made of, and hopefully we can get it done.
Agreed on all fronts. I will say this. It's a little different than a regular preseason in a typical sport where you're on a one-year cycle.
Yeah.
You could argue we've had 4 years of preseason, and we're coming down to the end of the runway here and hoping for the best, as this squad has just really just a few months to get tuned up and get ready for a big and hopefully successful showing at the World Cup. A correction before we go. Our producer Jordan informed me that USA versus Belgium, the scoreline was 5-2, not 5-1. As I said earlier, I think I described that as a clattering 5-2. Still tough. Hoping for a better result tonight in Portugal, rooting for the men's team, and we're going to ponder all this while we're on break. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. as we continue to barrel along on this home stretch towards the closing day of the 2026 legislative session under the Gold Dome. The end of the road is coming up on Thursday, the final day known as sine die. And right now, lawmakers are in the midst of last-minute negotiations over the fate of a big number of bills that still have a chance of becoming law. This is the season of a lot of negotiation, a lot of debate, and a lot of horse trading as the fates of many of these bills are still up in the air. You're looking live on your screen right now at proceedings at the state capitol of the House Committee on Governmental Affairs. They're talking about SB 423 right now. Let's listen into some of this debate.
Means of preventing corruption or the appearance of corruption. Supporters of this bill will argue that those same principles are extended, limiting the geographical source of funds. This is a reasonable reading of the doctrine, and I will not dismiss it. But here is where the argument breaks down. The First Amendment protects the courts have attached to political contributions do not disappear at the state border. Federal courts have historically applied meaningful scrutiny to restrictions on political speech and associations, and geographically based contributions of this kind have not been clearly validated. This bill would almost certainly face immediate legal challenge, and Georgia taxpayers would bear the cost of defending it in litigation that we may well lose. Georgia has been here before. We have passed laws under this Gold Dome that were well-intended but constitutionally vulnerable, and we have paid for it in courts' costs, in injunctions, and in the damage of our legislative credibility. I am not suggesting this bill's sponsor acted in bad faith. I am suggesting that good intentions do not insulate legislation from judicial review. The practical effect of legal challenge is not merely delay. If an injunction is entered while litigation proceeds, enforcement is suspended, and campaigns operate in legal uncertainty. That uncertainty does not serve voters of Georgia. It serves no one except lawyers. No offense to the lawyers. There is also a more fundamental point. Political speech and association are not privileges that states dispense. They are constitutional rights. When we condition a person's ability to participate in the political process on whether they filed a Georgia income tax return in the prior calendar year, we are establishing a financial and residency test for political participation. This is the kind of restriction courts scrutinize with care, and rightly so. I want to be clear, the concern about outside money in our elections is not invented. It is real. There are legitimate policy debates about how to address it, but the response has to be one that can withstand constitutional challenge. That is proportionate, and that does not sweep in lawful political participation as collateral damage. This bill does not meet that standard. It is constitutionally fragile and puts Georgia in legal jeopardy that we do not need to accept. I urge you, my colleagues, to vote no on Senate Bill 423. I yield the well.
Ladies yielded the well. There are about 2 minutes left. The chair recognizes Representative Sanchez to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. SB 423 is being presented here as a common sense bill for transparency and ensuring campaigns are funded in state. I wish that were the case. I really do. I'm actually very proud to have not taken any corporate PAC money in my campaigns. So when I first saw this bill, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're finally going to do something about money in politics and getting the corruption out of our government. Imagine my disappointment when I actually read the bill. I take no issue with Section 1 of this act, which is all about transparency, which I think is great. The problem is Section 2. In reality, this bill is about one thing. It's restricting individual contributions to campaigns. Requiring 50% of contributions to be in-state sounds good on the surface, but like one of my colleagues like to say, the devil is in the details. Any individual is a non-Georgia person under this bill unless they either paid income tax in Georgia last year or are registered to vote in Georgia on the contribution date. Setting aside that campaigns have no way to check whether a donor paid income tax last year, these are restrictive standards that do not actually encompass all Georgians who should be able to contribute to campaigns. There are many citizens of our state who have paid sales and or property tax but earn too little money to pay income tax, such as low-income workers and seniors. This is true even if none of the proposals to slash our state income tax are adopted this session. By contrast, this bill provides a very generous standard for corporations. Basically, if you're a corporation, this bill doesn't really matter because you can be registered to do business in Georgia, you all paid income taxes, or file a tax return, or if you can't do any of those things, you can just say sufficient economic that it maintains a sufficient economic presence, property, or payroll within the state to establish a nexus under state law. It's, once again, another bill written for corporations, but not for individuals. So this bill will benefit people who take corporate money, but not those who do grassroots contributions. And the last part I want to say is that in committee, we subbed out the part that restricts PACs and independent committees. So we're not even getting rid of dark money PACs at all. So this is just targeting small dollar grassroots campaigns. It is a ridiculous piece of legislation. If we actually want to address corruption, this is not the way to do it. There's much better ways to do it, and I hope that we will. Please vote no on this legislation. Thank you. I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. There is a minority report. The chair recognizes Representative Evans to speak to the bill.
And we want to turn now to some breaking news just crossing the wire in the last moment or two. A federal judge has just ordered that the Trump administration suspend construction of that $400 million ballroom project after it demolished the east wing of the White House. United States District Court Judge Richard Leon in Washington granted a preservationist group's request for a preliminary injunction that temporarily halts President Trump's White House ballroom project. That's all according to the Associated Press here. The AP's reporting continues, saying that Judge Leon wrote that the president is a steward of the White House, not its owner. The National Trust for Historic Preservation sued to obtain an order pausing the ballroom project until it undergoes multiple independent reviews and receives approval from Congress. The East Wing, which has since been demolished, housed the office of the First Lady. Georgia's own former First Lady, Rosalynn Carter, is credited with establishing the East Wing of the White House, that East Wing that has since been demolished as part of President Donald Trump's ongoing ballroom project that is now on pause after moments ago a federal judge in Washington issued a preliminary injunction temporarily halting the ballroom project. We'll have much more coming up in just a few moments. We're going to go to a quick break. We'll be right back after this. There is a produce stand called Sherry's Produce Stand in Tucker, and it has been at the same place for decades. And recently, it has been in a fight for its life to stay there and stay in business. Our Caitlin Ross joins us now. Caitlin has been following the story every step of the way. And Caitlin, I know there is another brand new wrinkle in this ongoing, I mean, really, it's cliche but true, a roller coaster of a story. But maybe before we get to that, for people who are not familiar, bring us up to speed. Tell us about the foundations of this conflict that's been going on here.
Yeah, so Sherry's is this awesome produce stand in Tucker, Georgia. I get my pumpkins there every year. They're a community staple. It is this outdoor stand, and you walk up, they have every type of fruit or vegetable you can imagine. They do a lot of seasonal stuff. They obviously do the pumpkins, and people love it. People have been going to Sherry's forever. It's family run. Every time you go, you're going to see Sherry. Like, she is the matriarch, she's the staple. Every child who goes gets a free piece of fruit. So they just have a lot of community goodwill, right? People in Tucker love Sherry's. But in January, they shared that they were going to have to close down because the property owner who had owned that corner in Tucker for years and years and years was selling the property. And at the time, they thought there's no way we're going to be able to afford it. So they post on their Facebook page, that's it, we're closing down. And Tucker said, well, no, you're not. Take a look at what happened. Sherry's Produce Stand has just about everything.
Snap beans, squash, fantastic maters, red taters, white taters, Kirby cucumbers. They taste so much better.
But what they didn't have was the deed to the land where they've run the stand for 28 years.
Oh, I freaked out. I mean, it broke my heart.
Founder Sherry Harris says she understood why the landlord wanted to sell the property on Lawrenceville Highway.
It was devastating. I couldn't imagine not being here.
But she just couldn't picture this place closing for good.
All I could do was cry because I thought we was gone. I really did. I thought when we closed the door Christmas, that was it. I didn't think we'd be back.
Customers figured the land was worth a lot in a fast-growing city like Tucker, and that there was just no way to compete with developers.
We literally went on the black market and sold everybody's kidneys, sold everything we had. You know, everybody took out loans. There's just no possible way.
But Sherry's daughter Tina says customers weren't ready to give up on their produce stand or the people behind it.
There's not a better place than Tucker. I've been here 50-something years.
They set up a fundraiser to help the family buy the land and keep the stand right where it is.
And even the ones that can't give have reached out. I mean, like sending prayers, well wishes, happy thoughts, and it all counts. Like everything adds up. That's how we got to stay here, is everybody just wanting us to stay. They willed it into existence. It's pretty cool.
Sherry's is known for a lot of things. The kindness, the conversation, a free piece of fruit for every kid who walks through the gate.
Because they choose us. It's like the least we can do, because we wouldn't be here without them.
Now, the history and the fresh produce are all staying right here at Sherry's Produce Stand.
My heart's just a smiling. It really is. My heart is just a smiling.
Sherry's stays standing because this community stood up.
The happy ending there, everything, you watch that story from back in January, you look at it and say, okay, great.
Yeah.
Community came together.
Sherry's is there.
Sherry's is back, problem solved, we're moving forward. Now, unfortunately, another wrinkle here, Kate.
Yes. Oh, this one was heartbreaking. It's one of those stories that you followed for so long and you see the update and your heart just falls into your stomach. So Sherry's shared earlier this week, maybe at the end of last week. I think it was the end of last week. They said, look, we're going to have to close after all because the owner of the parking lot now is refusing to let Sherry's customers park. Went so far as to make a sign that said no parking for Sherry's customers. This is kind of like a mall, like a parking mall. There's like a number of different businesses you can go into, but it's always empty every time you go. So it didn't make sense to anybody in the community that people who were going to Sherry's wouldn't be able to park there. It's not like there were, fistfights over parking spots, but Sherry said without people being able to park, there was no way they would be able to continue to keep their doors open. They have a lot of customers who are elderly, they have mobility issues. It wasn't going to be reasonable for people to park across the street and go across a very busy road to
Not
get
to mention,
there.
I mean, you gotta have somewhere to put your pumpkins.
Yeah, you gotta have somewhere to put your pumpkins. You can't be carrying those across the street, no way. So they thought they were gonna have to close again, which was so devastating because they had just went through this whole other thing where they had the community come together, they were gonna stay open. So Tucker does not mess around when it comes to Sherry's. They were going to host a park-in. Like, hundreds of cars were going to park in that parking lot and refuse to leave until they agreed to let Sherry's customers park there. I had reached out to the attorney and the property manager, and we were getting ready to do a story about this because there's just so much love for Sherry's in the community, and it felt like, man, just let them park.
And people had been doing it forever
Yes.
there, too, before they owned the property.
Decades and decades. And Sherry's had been paying insurance on the parking lot. So it just the whole thing made no sense.
So this is the state of play. The park-in is set to happen.
Yes, the
and
park-in
then-
was supposed to happen this weekend, and then, boom, boom, deal is made. So they changed their minds. They said that the community pressure basically worked again. So not only did the community help them raise money to buy the property to keep Sherry's open, then all of those phone calls and emails and, telegrams got the attention of the property owner for the parking lot, who finally said, all right, Sherry's, go ahead and park your cars. So opening day this weekend, it's going to happen.
It's almost, they've gone so far around the circle that effectively you're right back at where Sherry's was, which is you can park there, you can get your produce, you can get your pumpkins and
you
your
can do it all.
snap peas and your maters,
Your maters.
which was awesome. I love that in the story. And everything's kind of back the way it was, except now it seems Sherry and her family have much more autonomy over what happens, at least on that property that they own
Right.
now. And they've reached some agreement with this parking lot owner. Did you ever get to the bottom of why all of a sudden that property owner was raising a fuss about this?
There's some background back and forth that perhaps the people who owned the parking lot may have wanted to buy the land that Sherry's was on. So there might have been some, I hate to use a produce metaphor. I got to do
It's
it.
begging for it.
Sour grapes.
Uh-oh.
There might have been some sour grapes. But thankfully, it all worked out. So they came up with a deal, a private deal. We don't know the details, but we do know that Sherry's customers are allowed to park, and thankfully the whole thing has worked out. Sherry's can stay open. It's all beautiful.
Have you had a chance to talk with Sherry and her family since this? I don't want to jinx it, but it seems now a complete solution has been reached.
Yes, thankfully, I've been texting back and forth with them, and they are so excited. They're so grateful for the support of the community, and it's one of those things where it's, we're doing so many stories on this produce stand because so many people in the community love it so much. It's been there for decades. It is beloved. People have traditions when they go there, and the community really wanted to save it. And so they did.
This is local news too, right? This is what we do. Atlanta, Metro Atlanta is a huge place. We got millions of people who live here and watch us, and we're grateful for that. At bottom, though, we're reporting on the places that we live, that we call home, that we go and get pumpkins at. And Caitlin, you do it better than anybody, being an amplifier of the voices of folks who are, if you're watching us from New York City, you may say, hey, what's the big deal? We're talking about some pumpkins here. But if you live in Tucker, this is a staple. This is a place people have decades of memories, and it is a big deal.
Right. It matters to them. It really does. And it certainly matters to Sherry and her family. So super, super grateful that it all worked out for them. And I'm going to get myself some maters this weekend.
The maters are coming up. I don't know if they're in season. They probably will be here. Caitlin, before we let you go, we've got like 45 seconds left. Does Sherry and her family, do they feel like, okay, this is fully behind them now? Are they? Because, they're gardeners. Gardeners are superstitious sometimes. Think about the weather, the crops, everything else. Do they feel like, okay, now we can get back to just being Sherry's?
I hope so. I think that this whole thing has been so difficult. There's been so many twists and turns. They had been open. They thought they were going to close. They were back open, but they couldn't park. Now they're hopefully going to be open again. So I think they're holding their breath a little bit and just really hoping that, okay, the season is going to start. They're going to be open and everything will be business as usual. And that's the best we could hope for them because their business rocks.
Coming into their 29th year.
Yes.
Almost 3 full decades. And this will be an exciting opening
It
for
really
this
will
one.
be.
Caitlin Ross, as always, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We are wrapping up our time here. 11Alive News at 4 o'clock is next. On the show, big stories we're following. State lawmakers are taking another step toward reforming homeowners associations, HOAs, and a judge is weighing whether new evidence could overturn a former Gwinnett County officer's conviction. That is all coming up next. We'll see you there.